Hello YouTube, Bane666 here. Welcome to Propaganda of Toxic Feminism, the series in which I expose and debunk falsehoods, misconceptions and outright lies spread about the men's rights movement. So let's get stuck into it. Okay, so there isn't much left of the cake article, so let's finish it off once and for all before moving on to something else.
Do women rape men? Yes, of course. We, as feminists, aren't denying that such a phenomenon exists, but there are mounds of reports illustrating that rape against women on campuses, at home, and by people that they trust are men by an astronomical majority.
This once again comes down to the definition and context of the word rape. For example, if we were to say that a female who has had a couple of drinks of her own free will engages in consensual sex with a man is in fact a rape victim, as she had alcohol in her system, even though everything she did was consensual and she didn't consider herself a rape victim. If we class her as a victim anyway, then we get a very high percentage of female rape victims. I'm looking at you, Mary Koss. And if at the same time we exclude male victims who are forced to penetrate as actual rape victims, even if that male was passed out drunk and in no way could give consent, if we start with an inaccurate and biased definition from the start, based on feminist gender stereotypes and fear-mongering, if we do all these things and more, then we shouldn't be surprised we have mainly female victims. Let me give you a scenario. Imagine a small town with a racist cop as the sheriff, and this racist cop routinely gives tickets to African Americans, even for the smallest of offences, while at the same time letting whites off with just a warning, a smile and a nod for exactly the same offences. Do you think the statistics of that town's driving offences based on race would be an accurate depiction of reality? What if the town implemented additional mandatory driver education only for African Americans based on these faulty statistics? What about ad campaigns targeting only African American drivers? Would that be fair? Of course it wouldn't. If you start out with a faulty, biased view of the world, then your conclusions are going to be faulty. Next.
MRAs who barge into a conversation to scream, "What about the men?" are completely dismissing the fact that an epidemic exists simply so they can wield the spotlight for a couple seconds.
Wield the spotlight for a few seconds. You mean as opposed to actually talking about all victimizers and all victims, instead of basing victimhood on gender. Is that what you mean by wield the spotlight? Next.
Their arguments really have nothing to do with helping the men that do experience rape.
To help male victims of rape, we as a society first need to acknowledge male victims of rape. And to get society to acknowledge male victims of rape, we need to actually talk about male victims, which is the very thing she is criticising us for. Next.
They don't want to make the shelters for battered men.
I guess she's never heard of Earl Silverman, but if feminism is there to help men too, which is what we are constantly told by feminists, then where are all the feminist shelters for battered men? Feminists outnumber us, have access to more funding, have more influence in the government and the media, yet they have done nothing. Next.
They laugh at a man who states he was molested at their conference, and one of their conference speakers made a rape joke about his son.
So I asked Dean Esme to comment on this, as not only was he at the conference in question, but also one of the organisers. Dean replied with,
"Both of these claims are hideously abusive lies. Toxic because they are meant to be painful when we hear them and not just hurt our bad name. Yes, There was a weird man at the press conference on day 0, the pre-conference, and he was flirting with people and feeling them up and apparently mentally ill. A sleazy reporter at the Metro Times in Detroit wrote up a mocking story telling people he was sexually molested at the conference. The reporter didn't even stay for the end of the conference or ask any of us about it, so we didn't notice the guy until the next day when he was there doing it some more. So we felt really bad, but we had to ask him to leave. And in his speech to the conference, Paul Allen that night mentioned the man and, in tears, noted that he wished we and the rest of society could do more to help the mentally ill man like that. This is the kind of hateful abuse and mischaracterization we got all along the way. At the ICMI we also had a homeless man who bicycled all the way across country, then got his bike stolen just because he wanted to be there. No one in the press would cover that. Instead they just came for a few hours, found something to make fun of, and left. Well, that's what most of the press did. A few did their jobs well. As for the rape joke about his son, that is an even more deeply hurtful claim on multiple levels. A speaker mentioned his deep worry for his son and gave a nervous laugh, noting that his son is kind of small and easily picked on, and others in the audience laughed nervously, not sure how to react. You can go listen to it. It's in the speech by Fred Jones on Paul's YouTube channel. You may, and I hope you do, quote this email in its entirety. And I just repeat the observation that these claims are not just meant to poison the well against men's rights activists. They are also a form of psychological warfare meant to hurt us and make us waste time explaining what actually happened, and looking defensive. Go look at the actual events, and these are obviously not just ideas these people are confused by. This is intentional smearing. This is intentional hateful bigoted agitprop.
Next.
These people don't care about the struggles of male rape victims.
Which is funny, because the only time feminists bring up male rape victims is when they are trying to score points against the men's rights movement. Next.
Their struggle to make this into a conversation about an alleged widespread systematic misandry is quite ridiculous and shameful. If they want to help men, they need to start by taking rape seriously instead of just looking for things to pin on women and feminists.
Once again, let me stress, feminists ignore female victimizers. We are not attacking women. We are not saying only females do bad things. We are simply trying to look at all victimizers and all victims, regardless of gender, the whole picture, in other words, and that means pointing out that women do bad things as well. Next.
What is the core goal of men's rights activism? Is it dignity and respect for the male gender? Is it working? To this day, I think we are still trying to figure out what these so-called activists have as their goal.
That's probably because you spend all your time falsely associating trolls with us, instead of trying to understand our actual goals. Next.
They make a lot of claims as to what they are seeking, but their actions truly illustrate otherwise. Outlined on A Voice for Men, they claim that they want to obtain a world where men aren't expected to register for the draft once they turn 18. They don't want fathers to lose out on custody rights because of court biases. They don't want their sons to be forced into circumcisions. They don't want men to be ignored when it comes to sexual violence.
Hold on. Didn't she just say a minute ago that she is still trying to figure out what these so-called activists have as their goal? It seems she does know what at least some of our goals are. Next.
The thing is, feminists understand these issues and have been working to fight them for a significant period of time.
And yet very little has changed. And just because feminism is working on these things, or at least claims to be, it doesn't mean other groups cannot work on them as well. Why should feminism hold a monopoly? Next.
We want equal pay for women, for doing the same job, as well as equal opportunities for obtaining meaningful professions.
Fantastic. You've already had it for 50 years. Could we possibly talk about those male rape victims now? Next.
This would eliminate the need for an outstanding alimony check. We want fathers to be seen as capable of raising children as well. We want an end to forced genital mutilation for all sexes. These are things that have been in the feminist agenda for decades, but for some reason, MRAs feel the insatiable need to fight us every step of the way instead of hearing us out.
Oh, look, we've heard you all right. We've heard you loud and clear. You scream patriarchy backfiring and then sit on your hands and do nothing. Time for a change. Next.
What's with the vitriol spewing MRAs? Are they just harming their own cause? We've had many MRAs claim that there is a stark difference between them and the ones that just want to come out and troll. But to be honest, if we let them have discussions with us and our supporters long enough, they just get violent. We've had MRAs leave about a typed page's worth of arguments that have names and swear words laced within the sentences. They really do discredit themselves and their cause by becoming belligerent.
Oh no, not swear words.
Do some research, because the site I mentioned, Return of Kings, which is a fucking loser sort of pickup artist thing, they said they don't like men's rights activists, right? And because I call them men's rights activists. You know why I call them that, you fucking brain-dead little knuckle-dragging shitheads? Because anyone who's not a fucking circle jerk, MRA, PUA, fuckwit, can't fucking tell the difference, you fuckwits! You're the same! You fucking reprehensible scum! Any rational person thinks you're fucking worthless, okay? No one fucking cares! Oh my god! And actually, the ones who actually said, he's not an MRA, he's not a men's rights activist, he's a pickup artist, like that's fucking better! It's like, oh my god, you are so fucking socially dysfunctional and incapable of seeing women as humans. You have to go for psychologically abusive tricks to try and force them to have sex with you. You sad fucks! You sad fucks! I shouldn't call them that, because there is a town called Sad Fuckville where all the sad fucks live, and they made all the MRAs and PUAs move the fuck away! Because they said we might be sad fucks, but we're not MRAs or PUAs! Go away! True story.
Angry Aussie. And guess what? He's not an MRA. No, he's actually a feminist. No, but go ahead and tell us about some random trolls who may or may not be MRAs swearing on Facebook. But, of course, totally ignore the exact same behaviour amongst certain feminists. I mean, that's typical, isn't it? It only counts when our side does it. Next.
What is the worst type of MRA you've come across? Oh, we have dozens of pictures saved up. They get pretty bad, even anti-Semitic.
So let's have a look at the examples they picked from these dozens of pictures saved. After all, we would expect them to pick the very best evidence that they have against men's rights, wouldn't we? That would make sense, wouldn't it? So let's have a look at the first one. It reads, "Make no mistakes about it. The major cause of single motherhood is women's unwillingness to be submissive. Not that they can't be submissive, but they refuse to be submissive to the right man. How do we know that women can be submissive? Well, they submit to their bosses at work, they submit to their teachers at school, they submit to judges, police officers, the lawmakers. All these are positions of power and authority that they willingly submit to. But when it comes to their man, they rebel. And if they do submit to a man, it's usually the wrong man. It's usually the man who doesn't have standards, order and discipline. It's usually the man that they can have a good time with. This man places no standards of behaviour, conduct or appearance on women. All he's concerned with is pleasure, leisure and fun. This is the man that women choose to submit to. There is no such thing as a woman being tricked or deceived by a man. No, she chose to submit to a worthless man, thus rebelling against a decent man. Single motherhood was her choice." Okay, so the obvious question here is, what the fuck does this have to do with men's rights? Where does he mention any men's rights issues? Nowhere. But out of the dozens of examples, I'm sure the next one will definitely, without a doubt, be an MRA. Right? And I didn't notice it before, namely because this bullshit popped up in my news feed. But your group name is stupid. Exposing men's rights activism? What? I'm a feminist, and as far as I know, men and women have equal rights. No, Why is men's activism any worse than women's activism? Hint, it's not. Hi, welcome to reality. Claiming all men are rapists because they don't like a colour of lipstick is sexist. Period. Again, fuck off. Well, this isn't a very strange example of a men's rights activist, because they clearly state in the example that they are a feminist. Maybe we should look at the next example. Well, this one comes from Men's Rights News, so yeah, I have to give this one to them. It's pretty clear that it's most likely a men's rights activist. But let's read it anyway. Women have never been oppressed. Women have been protected and provided for, at the cost of men's lives. You don't oppress something you're protecting. Read the book The Myth of Male Power to understand the meaning of oppression versus privilege. It is thanks to men that women had rights to fight for. Well, that's a fair comment, and I have to acknowledge that this one is actually a men's rights activist. Amazing, they actually found one example of an EMRA. So what exactly is wrong with this quote? It's hardly saying that women should be chained to the kitchen sink. It's just questioning feminist ideology, that's all. I don't see anything really wrong with it. But let's move on to the next one. The fact that you use the term Islamophobia in a context outside of sarcasm or irony completely shreds your credibility. You're a retard. There is no such thing as Islamophobia. It is a catchy buzzword coined by spineless shitstains who conflate criticism of a mythology with prejudice against a group of people. Is your tiny brain able to comprehend this? I'm not going to deny that, for example, in the US, most white people think Muslims are all exclusively turban-wearing brown people from the Middle East that teach their children how to blow themselves up and shoot automatic weapons in a terroristy fashion. But this is beside the point. Men are indeed disadvantaged in a few ways. I honestly don't know to what extent because of all the vitriolic propaganda flung by both sides, but men are most definitely disadvantaged in certain ways. Male-dominated fields, that's because women don't have any interest in them, because of artificial gender roles imposed by society. Women should like cooking instead of math, to roughly generalise. I doubt you care. You're riding the high horse so hard you decided to save time and just crawl up its arse. I acknowledge that inequality exists for both sexes, but am unable to make any confident guess as to the extent. I can safely say that sexism affects men as much as women at least. Now, once again, what exactly points to this guy being an MRA? He does acknowledge that men have issues, but he refers to both sides as if he's on neither side. So I wouldn't say he's an MRA, I'd say he's sitting somewhere in the middle and judging both feminists and MRAs as being very similar. As far as acknowledging men have issues as well, if that's the criteria for someone being an MRA, then both the person interviewing and the person being interviewed in the cake article would also be MRAs, because they at least give lip service to men's issues. I don't actually believe that they care about men's issues, but they at least claim to. If that's all that's required to be an MRA, then surely they're MRAs as well, aren't they? And there's one more. Unfortunately, every time I click on it, it takes me to the previous picture, so I haven't got a large example to show you, but I can just make it out. It says, she could use a good hard penis in her, set her straight. And then someone replies, maybe a couple. Get those back doors kicked in and have a high five over her back as she gags on the patriarchy. Well, clearly that's an MRA. I mean, it's not like any random troll could be saying that just to, piss someone off. Clearly that's probably Paul Elam in disguise, obviously. Because a troll would never, ever say that. Not a chance. Not a chance a troll would try to upset someone by making such comments. Would never happen in the history of the internet. Not once. Next.
Have you ever witnessed an EMRA realize the futility of their arguments? On one account has this happened, and it turned into a sexual proposal. It was quite off-putting to say the least.
Yes, and I'm sure that is as accurate as the rest of this article. And with that, I'm finally through this piece of shit, so we can move on to something else. Next. So I'm guessing by now, you've all seen this footage. It's from a few years ago at the University of Toronto. Well, the U of T feminists are at it again.
U of T feminists blame death threats on men's rights activists. Men's groups have changed campus in the past 3 years and tensions are running high, feminist says during rally by Jessica Smith-Cross. The men's right movement at University of Toronto is to blame for recent threats targeting women on campus, feminists charged Monday. CUP 3902's Women's Caucus organized a rally at Spadina and Bloor after messages threatening to kill feminists and women were left in the comments sections of blog TO articles in June and earlier this month.
I have to ask again, how exactly do they know these messages were left by MRAs? The answer is, of course, they don't. And of course we aren't shown these messages. Assuming they exist, why should we believe they are from MRAs? How can we be sure that it's not another case of Meg Lenker Simons? You remember Meg, right? She's the feminist that's famous for receiving threats on an online university forum and proceeded to hold public rallies discussing how she was a victim. The thing is, Meg wasn't all that smart. You see, she sent the threats to herself, as the police discovered in their investigation. And speaking of rallies, next.
About 200 union members, women and male allies marched through the streets chanting slogans including, "We are U of T, we fight against misogyny." Count Kristen Wong-Tam and NDP candidate Jennifer Hawley were among those who gave speeches to the crowd. Feminist Ashley Engel also spoke, talking about how men's groups have changed campus in the past 3 years. Tensions have run high, she said, and feminists who've protested the groups have received death and rape threats. These threats that we are here to stand up against today, they didn't come out of nowhere, she said. They are supported by an environment that is hostile and backwards and encouraged by these men's rights misogynists on our campus.
Claims, of course, that she can't prove. Next.
Though they hide behind a thin veneer of real issues, just below the surface is a vile and vicious misogyny, she continued. Their goal is to blame all of the issues of people in society on feminism, and a component of that is to threaten and harass feminists into silence.
This is really hilarious. The hypocrisy is just unbelievable. She admits that there are real issues. What she forgets to mention is that feminist groups like her own actively stand in the way of dealing with those real issues. Literally stand in the way. Actively shut things down every chance they get. And then they actually have the nerve to wonder why we have a problem with feminism. It's just unbelievable. Of course, pulling fire alarms and trying to shut down any and all discussion has backfired on them. So now they are playing victim, damseling for sympathy, and attempting to demonise MRAs. You know, the typical methods used by feminists. Next.
Justin Trottier, a founder of the Men's Issues Club at U of T and the Associated Canadian Association for Equality, called the online threats deplorable. "We condemn in the strongest words any threats of violence or intimidation as an organization that's active on campus and exists to promote free exchange of dialogue," he said.
And I would agree with him. Online threats are fucked up. That is, online threats by anyone, including social justice warriors. Or don't bomb threats count when they are against gamergators? Next.
He denied either organization is a men's rights group or anti-feminist. "We would like to see the temperature turn down a little bit, and for people to engage in positive, productive, constructive dialogue," He said it was never the goal to create a war or a gender war.
Unfortunately, his opposition aren't interested in dialogue. They aren't interested in discussion, just bullying and harassment. But there is an even more shocking case of harassment by MRAs at a university, this time in the UK. This one is so incredibly shocking, so unbelievably outrageous, so monstrously threatening, that I'm tempted to abandon the term MRA and become a feminist. Well, not really. Let's have a look at this shocker.
Men's rights graffiti on campus causes uproar.
Wow, it must really be something bad to cause an uproar. Possibly something like kill all women. You know, something bigoted and offensive towards the opposite gender that you would never ever hear from a feminist. I mean, they would never make a hashtag like, I don't know, kill all men, would they? Oh, hold on. They already did that. Anyway, I'm sure for it to cause such an uproar, it would have to be something worse than kill all women, right? Well, let's find out.
Provocative graffiti about men's rights has sparked outrage on campus. The apostrophe lacking doodle, which reads, "Men's Rights, London Student," was spotted in the King's Building unisex toilets by theology student Nick Jobs' success.
Men's Rights London Student? Have more evil words ever been spoken in the history of mankind? Surely Satan himself crawled up from the depths of hell to scrawl these words for all to see. What other explanation could there be for such evil? Or possibly they're overreacting, maybe just a little bit. I'll let you decide. Next.
Members of King's Intersectional Feminist Society have expressed their annoyance, with some saying they feel threatened by the note.
And in no way are they overreacting. Well, maybe a little bit. Next.
Nick spotted the writing in one of the unisex cubicles in the King's Building on the second floor. He expressed his initial reaction of shock and disgust to us. He said, "It was really shocking to see it on campus, even as a man. It's chilling to think that there are people so strongly opposed to women's rights at our university."
And of course, here we have it. The bullshit claim that being a men's rights activist means you want to take away the rights of women. Once again, we have a group of misinformed feminists overreacting due to bigoted feminist propaganda, which is kind of amusing considering what they say next.
Meanwhile, Sophie, IFEMSOC president, told the Tab, "I find MRA groups quite amusing really, because they show a fundamental lack of understanding of what feminism, intersectional feminism in particular, truly is."
Absolutely fucking amazing. Next.
They spread false propaganda about the movement, and some of their claims are ridiculous to say the least. Feminism is about the destruction of the patriarchy, not a desire to eradicate those who self-identify as men.
Which is exactly why feminists so often use the term toxic masculinity, right? It's in support of self-identifying men, clearly, which is exactly the same reason they use the term toxic femininity, right? Oh, hold on. They never use that term. Why, it's almost like they only see the negatives of masculinity and only the positives of femininity, and then have the nerve to call it equality, which is clearly supportive of those who self-identify as men, right? Yeah, maybe not. Next.
It is about the liberation of people from gendered binaries and set roles, which involves being mindful of the pressures men face in a patriarchally constructed society. Some of the most wonderful, supportive feminists I know are self-identifying men, but they are cognizant of their own privilege, and how it impacts women and those of marginalized genders. This is something that those involved in MRA groups can't seem to grasp as important. Sophie even went so far as to invite the perpetrators along to one of IFEMSOC's events.
Just a word of advice to any MRA who might attend a FemSoc meeting. Don't drink the poison Kool-Aid. It's poison. Next.
She said, I would encourage the EMRA group that is clearly skulking around campus to come to one of our events. I wish they had come to our Intersectionality 101 event on Tuesday, which was so well attended we had people sat on the floor, because I think they might have really learned something.
I have to ask, how does she know there's a group? Assuming, of course, that the graffiti was actually written by an actual MRA, how does she know it's not just one individual? I also find it amusing that they think that if an MRA just attends one of their meetings, he'll automatically see the light and be converted. It never actually occurs to her that we might already know what feminist ideology is and reject it. Next.
Another student to feel the effects of this act is Lydia Bevan, the LGBT plus rep for IFEMSOC, who told us she felt threatened by the forceful message.
Forceful message? Are you fucking kidding me? Seriously? How exactly is men's rights London student threatening? Unbelievable. How exactly are these people going to function once they leave university? Once they have to live in the real world? Once they have to interact with people with differing opinions? Just fucking unbelievable. Next.
She said, the fact that this is in a unisex bathroom makes it a threatening act. Unisex bathrooms operate so that women, men and people outside the gender binary are all given equal license to make use. This assertion of dominance is a vicious attempt to ensure that these spaces remain in balance, and further highlights the necessity for safe spaces across all campuses.
So far in this segment, we have seen claims of online harassment by MRAs of U of T feminists, of course with no actual evidence, and then in the UK we saw feminists losing their shit over a harmless message scrawled on a university bathroom wall. So let's take a look at a third story that ties both of them together. This one's going to piss you off, so strap yourselves in as we travel back to femnazistan, or as it's more commonly known, Canada. Next.
Feminism's fourth wave is the shit list. Social media platforms have become the 21st century version of Take Back the Night marches, only with more media attention. It was shocking but not surprising that women lining up in the Danforth Music Hall's ladies' room during the L7 show on September 6 found a shit list scrawled with names of alleged rapists.
Please note the word alleged. So I'm guessing any decent reporter would condemn such actions, right? After all, the media shouldn't be condoning vigilantism, should they? Well, unless you're a feminist journalist, that is. Next.
That's because L7 is the female-fronted band that not only influenced the Riot Girl movement, but also wrote and performed the unforgiving shit list. The song rages over Juliette Lewis's kick-ass, and every other body part, diner scene in the 1994 Psycho road trip movie Natural Born Killers as she boots the sexist rednecks who've rubbed her the wrong way. L7 fan Liv Lund, who directs a co-working space for video game developers in Montreal, says the list, at least 3 pages long, attracted a crowd of women in the music hall washroom. As she notes, it's a comment about that particular band, that particular song and what they stand for and what they stood for and that whole Riot Girl movement. Women taking their place in the scene and being heard. The thing is, women are still fighting to take their place and be heard. Over the past few years, their most prominent platform has been social media, a digital fourth wave of feminism focused on sexual assault. Hashtag after hashtag, from hashtag Gamergate to hashtag rape culture to hashtag FHRIP, has pushed gendered violence and abuse out of the shadows. These are the 21st century versions of Take Back the Night marches, but they get much more mainstream media attention. In Canada, this was most plainly felt last fall when Gian Gamashi was fired after several women charged that he had brutally assaulted them. My hashtag Been Raped Never Reported, co-created with journalist Sue Montgomery in Montreal, went around the world and was translated into different languages. It had women and men recalling how they'd remained silent after being sexually assaulted because of shame, stigma, self-blame or simply because the charges would never go anywhere. Which is why Rochelle, who prefers her last name not be used, to avoid online bullying, reacted as she did when she saw the shit list at the concert. The Toronto artist instinctively snapped a photo of it, with the names, occupations and accusations plainly visible, and posted it on Instagram.
Oh, the irony is unbelievable. So she doesn't want her last name known because she might get online harassment, but thinks nothing of publishing 3 pages of names of males who she doesn't know in an attempt to destroy their lives without even the slightest bit of evidence that they are guilty of any crime. Look, it's true, some of them might be guilty of sexual assault or rape, but it's also true that some of them might only be guilty of pissing off an ex-girlfriend. Next.
I thought I would like to make a digital version of this, and have as many people as possible see it. She recalls, I wasn't worried about a lawsuit. Fear of having people in power telling you what you've done is wrong can really stifle your actions and behaviors.
Amazing. It doesn't cross her mind for a single moment that there could be innocent names on the list. Think about it for a second. The level of evidence she needs to destroy the lives of a group of men is an anonymous list left on a public toilet wall which anyone could have added names to. This was all that was needed to convict and condemn these men in her mind, and she feels perfectly justified, proud in fact, of destroying their lives based on this flimsy evidence. Unbelievable. What a self-righteous cunt. Next.
I didn't write the list. I saw it in a public space. I have every right to share that and to talk about what it means.
It's true, she had every right to talk about the list, as I am now. I'd even go as far as saying she had the right to publish it if she covered up any identifying information, like the names. But she publicised those names. I'm no expert on the law, but surely this would leave her open to defamation lawsuits. Her actions could lead to someone losing their job, it could destroy families, relationships, friendships, it could even lead to someone being killed or committing suicide without any evidence. Welcome to the feminist injustice system. Next.
Although there's no way to tell how many reposts the photo got, it clearly had women talking, which was the point of the list, a way for women to share the names of their alleged attackers and issue warnings to others.
And of course, destroy the lives of any man they don't like. Once again, note the word alleged. Next.
Back in my day, we used indelible markers on bathroom stall walls. Once, in Courtown, I saw the words, "So-and-so is a roofie rapist," spray-painted on a garage door. But putting it online is taking it to a whole other level. As Lund maintains, we do need to look out for each other and believe each other when somebody is brave enough to step up and talk about an incident. I don't think we should be brushing each other off. However, posting on social media a list with full names and occupations that could go anywhere at any time, it's brutal and it could destroy somebody's life. It could destroy families. It could destroy so many things. I can understand that they may have done something that destroyed somebody else's life, but that may not be the right way to approach the situation. I'm not saying I have the solution, but it could have a terrible negative effect if somebody is accused wrongly.
And yet she did it regardless. And do you know why? Because the lives of males have no value to her. She simply doesn't give a fuck about them. Her cultish ideological beliefs come first. Imagine for a moment, if you will, that someone put a list of female names in a bathroom. Maybe claiming something like, I don't know, all these women have STDs, or even better, they all have AIDS. Could you imagine the sheer outrage from the online feminist media? No doubt they would claim it's proof of the patriarchy and the war on women. They would be screaming that all men everywhere hate and oppress all women. They would claim that it's a shaming tactic designed to keep women in their place, and that such claims without a scrap of evidence should be condemned. But of course, it's different when the accused are males. And I would argue that being accused of being a rapist is far worse than being accused of having AIDS. Next.
Even in a situation where it's black and white, when the situation is so obviously rape, people still get off or don't even get taken to court. explains Rochelle. So a lot of people are going to choose a different way of sharing their experiences and talking about them.
And here is the reason that mainstream feminism is so dangerous. It convinces otherwise normal people of a false victim narrative, which then excuses behaviour which would otherwise be condemned. This method can be very effective, as Hitler demonstrated in World War II. But Rochelle seems to be under the impression that even black and white cases of rape aren't taken seriously. That for some reason, even when there is clear, undeniable evidence, the legal system just lets rapists walk without even so much as a trial. Meanwhile, back in reality, if we are to believe rape stats, most rapes aren't reported, which means no possibility of trial or conviction. And unfortunately, often when rapes are reported, there is a lack of evidence. It's not uncommon for victims to put off reporting their rapes for some time, which is understandable considering what they have been through. But it greatly decreases the likelihood of an actual conviction. Unfortunately, rape cases are very rarely black and white. They almost always contain shades of grey, because more often than not, it's one person's word against another. But if we were to believe feminists like Rochelle, there's actually some grand conspiracy to silence all victims of rape. Clearly the the patriarchy is behind it. I get those two confused sometimes. Next.
Just last week, word of death threats against women at the University of Toronto spread on Facebook after, deep in the comments section of a local blog, posts by somebody using the handle Kill Feminists were discovered.
Oh no, not deep in a blog post. Clearly this is monstrous and unacceptable. You know, unlike Kill All Men. Next.
On Monday, September 14th, in response to the threats, a large protest against sexual violence blocked Bloor Street while politicians and activists made speeches. The solution to gendered violence is not increased police presence and securitization, co-organizer Eliada Kerr said in a statement. The answer is community building through collective action and education that promotes feminist ideals like gender equality in school, at work and at home.
And this is how those same feminists promote gender equality. Oh, look at that. We've come full circle. Next. Okay, so to finish off, let's go with some quality journalism from the Daily Dot. By the way, that's sarcasm, just in case you didn't pick up on that.
With no hymen, no diamond mantra, men's rights activists hunt for the perfect virgin. Warning: this post contains sexually explicit and sensitive material. There is no such thing as a reformed whore. There is no way for a woman to erase her sexual past. A woman's virginity should be preserved for her future husband. While these are prevalent opinions in some religious circles, they're also common to many EMRAs or men's rights activists. For those who have avoided the group's mostly misogynistic rhetoric in the past year, they have packaged this worldview into a common mantra: no hymen, no diamond.
And here we have another example of shonky journalism, in which they take a Facebook page, which quite possibly is a troll site, which has absolutely nothing to do with the men's rights movement, and falsely associate it with the mainstream men's rights movement. You know, as if we all believe that if a woman isn't a virgin, then she's not worthy of being married. Of course, you'd be hard-pressed to find any prominent EMRA who believes this. But let's look through the rest of the article and see if she mentions any other evidence. I'm sure she must have some other evidence apart from this one Facebook page that doesn't mention anything about the men's rights movement.
Hashtag no hymen no diamond. first appeared as a Twitter hashtag around October 2014. The inception of the term seems to have been organized on a forum for the return of kings, a website operated by EMRA poster child and pickup artist Extraordinaire Rush V, with the intent of trolling.
So, Rush V is now a poster child for the men's rights movement? I must have missed that meeting, but I guess in a way he is a poster child for the men's rights movement, but only in the mind of corrupt feminist journalists. And she even admits that it started as a form of trolling. You gotta realise that Rush V is in this to make money. He's not in it to liberate men, to help men's rights. He's not there to improve the lives of anyone except himself. He wants to sell books. That's it. So one way he does this is to get as much attention as possible by saying controversial things and stirring the pot and getting free publicity. The downside of that, unfortunately, is the constant false association with us. That is, it's a downside for us. Not so much for Rush, because he's getting publicity. And of course the feminists benefit from it, because they get to take free shots at us. And of course this story spread like a bad case of herpes, thanks to journalistic hacks who are more interested in headlines than doing 5 minutes of research. It appeared in the Daily Mail. It appeared in Metro UK. It appeared in Huffington Post. Not a big surprise. It appeared on something called Death and Taxes Mag. It appeared on Bustle. It appeared on Jezebel. Of course, why am I not surprised? It appeared on iDiva. It appeared on The Frisky. It appeared on The Raw Story. Once again, can't say I'm surprised. It appeared on Viral Women. It appeared on New York Daily News. It appeared on Newscrunch. It even appeared on a website called Vagabomb. Vagabomb? Really? There's actually a website called Vagabomb. Why am I not surprised? This is the current state of journalism. All that's needed is one bullshit, poorly researched article about a troll page for this bullshit to spread everywhere. Hack journalist after hack journalist, then copy and paste the bullshit without so much as 5 minutes research. No credibility needed. Just a clickbaity headline. That's it. This is what modern day journalism has become. Now, personally, I think the Facebook page is most likely just a trolling page. But let's, for argument's sake, assume for a moment that it's actually legit. I have to ask, so what? Why is it such a big deal that these guys want to marry virgins? Now, please let me stress, it's not a worldview that I hold, nor is it a men's rights issue. Nor should it be classed as a men's rights issue. This really has nothing to do with men's rights. But if a small percentage of guys want to marry virgins, well, even though it's not a worldview I hold or support, it's still their right. I guess you could say it's kind of like a small percentage of women will only marry guys who make six figures. I guess we could sum that up as no cash, no gash. Feel free to use that as a hashtag if you wish. Once again, I don't endorse that particular choice of those women, but at the same time it is their lives and their choice, and they're free to marry whoever they want. And if they set the criteria at a six-figure sum, then so be it. Personally, I think no hymen, no diamond, or no cash, no gash are fairly toxic, and anyone wise should probably stay away from him and not marry him, which is the whole point. If you disagree with their choice in partner, fine. No one's forcing you to marry him. That's simple. It's really a non-issue. It's another storm in a teacup, created by the feminists who just want to slag off men's rights activists once again in their never-ending war for justice. Anyway, folks, that's the end of another episode. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you're used to my voice by now. So until next time, always remember, don't drink the poison Kool-Aid.
Well, hello there, boys and girls. How you doing today, boys and girls? Yeah, well, today we're going to talk about men's rights. Yeah. Today, 2015, men have no rights in the United States of America. Yeah, the feminists have taken over. All the feminists and all the lesbians have taken over this country, the United States of America. They're taking all the politics, they're taking over in politics, they're taking over in education, churches, everything, man, they're taking over everything. And so it's time for us men to stand up and grow a pair and take over. Be a man again. Yeah, it's time to stand up and fight, man. Men's right, you gotta stand up, man. The hell the consequence, man. Yeah. So, anyway, well, you know, if I find anything down below, I'll put it down below.
He links to InfoWars. Yep.
Do the research, boys and girls. You know how to do the research, right? So, up there. And, so, anyway, we gotta do it. So, give me a, thumbs up or a thumbs down.
You know it's only a matter of time before social justice warriors and feminists start using this guy as an example of an actual EMRA. They'll probably start doing it any minute now.
And all the men should read the United States Constitution, man. All the men should go and invest in the United States Constitution. Go read it in the library. Go take a political science book, get a political science college textbook or something. Anyway, you can find the United States Constitution and read it.